You guys, oh, it's just a little bit chilly in here. I think I gotta get this new awesome blanket that my friend made.
Oh my God, did it arrive?
Is this not the boss or what?
Oh,
yeah. Man, Shelly made this for me, man. This is totally awesome. So I'm gonna sit here.
I'm so
Love you
glad
too,
it
boss.
arrived.
I'm gonna sit here and be King Scott this morning. All right then.
We just need a crown for you.
Oh, metaphorical crowns will suffice. Thank you. All righty then. Welcome to Dark Loops Productions She-Hulking, a podcast for discussing the Marvel series She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University.
And I'm Dr. Shelly Clevenger, chair and professor at Sam Houston State University, Department of Victim Studies.
And we're coming together today to discuss episode 7, The Retreat. Joining us in the discussion are two good friends of ours. Benjamin, please introduce yourselves. Tell the audience a little something about what you do and why you like this show.
So, hello everyone. My name is Benjamin Taitz. I am a registered psychological associate in California, ABD. So, working on my dissertation, which is actually I'm looking at the effectiveness of using geek therapy interventions in building rapport and therapeutic connection. So I really like geek stuff and, Marvel and DC and all that jazz. I work in clinical and forensic psychology. And I am the co-host of two podcasts. One is called Mental Health Quest, The Therapist's Office and Beyond, where we destigmatize mental health topics and mental conditions and just try to educate people about that. And then the other podcast is still kind of smaller, but it's still cool. It's called My Hero Therapy, where we do a deep dive into the psychology of the My Hero Academia anime to learn how we can be heroes in real life.
Fantastic.
Love it.
And why do you like this show?
I like this show, I think, because, well, I always like the superhero shows because there's so much psychology behind it, but then this also has like legal stuff too. And I just like, okay, I like legal, I like psychology. That's why I work in forensic psychology. But I like this show so far because it has a different feel than all the other Marvel shows, which are suspense and drama and action, which are great. Don't get me wrong, I love those. But I like that this just had a different feel. It kind of reminded me of Harvey Birdman. If you guys have seen that show from like, what is that? That was like 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I was a kid, and that was like my favorite thing to watch. I was not supposed to stay up that late, but
Oh, that's the only way you become yourself is by
staying up late and watching Harvey Birdman.
Or horror movies, creature features, man, whatever works, that's what we do.
Horror movies aren't my friend, no.
Well, we're glad you're here. Next, we have Jaime Coker. Jaime, tell us who you are, a little something about what you do, and why you like this show.
All right, everybody, my name is Jaime Coker. I am I like to call freelance pop culture artist extraordinaire, Comic-Con artist extraordinaire, rather. My wife and I, we do artwork, travel around the country, appear at Comic-Cons. We'll be at New York Comic-Con next week. I've done work for Upper Deck, Marvel, Hot Wheels. I've been licensed by several companies. I love to create mashups and taking a look at your popular characters in a different fashion than you ordinarily would see them on TV or comic books or movies. And just try to create new and different illustrations, so things I haven't seen before but I think that would interest people in the realms of the fantastic and creative. So let's see, why do I like the She-Hulk? Here's why I like She-Hulk. She-Hulk to me is, I was definitely watching it just to see if they were going to follow this. It uses a narrative device that was somewhat reminiscent in John Byrne's run on the comic that I used to collect. I remember picking up that first issue with the purple cover, and she was posing on the front of it. And that comic really it brought me back month to month, just reading about her exploits and the humor. And taking a character that ordinarily you would see in such a light as, origin story. She gets her powers, turns her whole being into this fight for what's right and what's good. But this comic is more so just dealing with the day-to-day of having to manage your alter ego and the resistance towards becoming a superhero. Just trying to live your life, but also coming to terms with who you are or who you're evolving into. So those things definitely drive my interest in the show. I love Tatiana Maslany. She, I loved her from Orphan Black. Yes. So, I'll follow her a lot of the things that she does.
That's fantastic. We're so glad that the two of you are here today.
Yeah. And so I'm going to open it up with a question. There's a lot to talk about, I think, for this episode, but I'm going to start with the group therapy sort of session that we see happening here, which I loved and I thought was really unique for a Marvel superhero show. But the thing that I want to talk about and ask you all about is the vulnerability that we see of Jen, but also of some of the other characters. I thought that was unique. I don't, we don't see other superheroes getting together and sharing their feelings in a way that we saw this. So what do you all think about this? Did you like it? Not like it? Want to see more of it?
So Ben or Jamie, you go first.
Okay. I had to jump in. I'm sorry, Jamie, just because I do primarily group therapy at my work with offenders. And so I love this thing because it actually reminded me a lot of, so I was doing group supervision this week. And, so at my work, we have like, I don't know, maybe 6 fully licensed psychologists, and then like 3 psychological associates like me, and then some interns who are still doing their practicums. And so we have a wide range of experiences, and we're talking about group therapy dynamics a lot, and how to facilitate the groups, and how to manage the emotions of the group and the vulnerability. And that was literally the topic of our group supervision this week, was vulnerability of the clients. And when I saw this episode, I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about.
No, it's great.
And I loved the way that they portrayed it because it was very real. In many group therapy environments, the therapist, and I'm using air quotes because Emil Blonsky is not a therapist.
No.
But the group facilitator, let's call them, is not the focal point of the group. In fact, actually, most research about the effectiveness of group therapy shows that the effectiveness comes from the group itself, not from the facilitator. Right. And I really like that because we saw that here, that the group members were the ones offering support and advice and feedback to each other more, and they listened to each other more than they listened to Emil. Not to say that Emil's statements were not good. They were technically all correct statements, if a little bland. But it showed that in a group therapy setting, the therapy comes from each other. And I really like that because I've seen it in groups where, one person makes that breakthrough or takes that accountability. And, in my work, working with offenders, people on parole and whatnot, that accountability is big. And for the group to be so supportive and vulnerable, it shows the other group members, look, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have issues. It's okay to have made mistakes because you're human, and that's okay. And so I really like that. And one last thing about it is that She-Hulk's kind of impression of the group therapy at the beginning is very common. Also, a lot of people walk into group therapy and they're very dismissive, and they're like, oh, wow, just a bunch of wishy-washy kind of things. But yet they gain like the most out of it because they had that defensiveness that gets taken down in the face of all that support. So I really love that depiction of it. It was
yeah. How about you, Jamie?
So it's interesting how this whole series has completely defied your typical superhero origin to me. It's like you take a character like Spider-Man, bitten by a radioactive spider, gets these powers, tries to deal with how to deal with the powers, how to use the powers, makes a mistake. Uncle Ben gets killed because of his negligence, then therefore devotes his life to fighting crime. In this, She-Hulk visits her cousin, gets into an accident, the blood gets in her blood, she becomes a hero, and then proceeds to still try to live her daily life and with the resistance towards becoming a hero. Definitely not wanting to acknowledge that the She-Hulk, even the name, she's totally resistant to the name initially,
right?
And then having to put these two sides of her together into one person, and I just find that fascinating. Especially when it comes to Marvel, it's like it's always fast tracked. Let's get the powers. Let's get to the hero part with some few beats in between. Let's just get there. And with She-Hulk, it's like I got these powers. I'm actually a little bit better at controlling my powers than my cousin.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I'm a lawyer who's a Hulk. I work in a firm as a Hulk. They only want me really as a Hulk. How do I live my daily life? How do I navigate my dating life? And especially, the one gentleman who, during the course of the story, seemed really nice when he met She-Hulk, and then waking up in the morning and sees Jennifer, and it's like, I'm
gotta go. Twice, by the way, once privately and once in court. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about rejection.
And the retreat episode, a lot of these smaller Marvel characters, what's fascinating is they give them like characters that throwaway characters in the comics. You think you're never going to see them on screen, but they utilize these characters in such a way that it's like little beats of humor, yes, but also little nuggets of like presence there that just it enhances the whole episode and kind of adds to Jen's journey towards putting those two halves together.
No, I love it. I love everything you guys are saying, and I have to say, for me, for the writing, we've been taught that Emil Blonsky's a bad guy. I mean, Shelly's convinced us
he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy in the comics. He's horrible.
And so here she shows up accidentally, I guess, at his place, or not in a not intended way. And then he actually does a good job providing a space for her to come to grips with something that she's not coming to grips with. And the whole time we're watching it, we're waiting for him to transform. We're waiting for something bad to happen. That's just good writing, right? And so we've got this tension and a scene that could be seen as kind of sappy. I mean, I thought it was genuine and I loved it, but there's this edge of tension that the writers get in there because of who he is, Abomination, right? And then just to see a group of vulnerable men be treated by writers with respect and actually then provide a space for a woman is not something the show so far has perhaps led us to believe we might see. And again, it's just writers getting in there and say, okay, build up, build up, build up, pull the rug out, build up, build up, build up, pull the rug out. And and so imagine how many people are watching this show and it's just this Trojan horse. Suddenly they're watching it, and then they see this group of men sitting around with a lot of comedy for sure, but brilliant writing, helping each other. I like the guy says, Jen, I think we may just have to face the possibility that you were ghosted. Right. I mean, just totally clinically. And then she comes out with this moment of revelation. And what they did beautifully in the visuals is had her actually go from She-Hulk to Jen and go through this emotional catharsis that, Porcupine might have experienced when he took off his mask, but it's just having it be that visual was just stunning. I the first time I watched it, I couldn't stop laughing. Second time I watched it, I got to admit I cried a couple of times because it was authentic. And, vulnerability, if you're going to be there for real, it's not easy. So Shelly, I absolutely love that scene. It was one of my favorite of the season. To be honest, I do appreciate male characters being shown a bit differently and being treated with respect instead of as stereotypes. So, no, I loved it.
Yeah, Same. And I also loved that they were supportive of her and not the dude.
Not the dude.
You know what I mean? Like they were on her side and they weren't like trying to make excuses, whereas her female friend was like, maybe that guy isn't texting back because he's doing these sort of things. But they were like, no, like, and then delete the number. And then they cheered and clapped when she did it. And it was nice. It was nice to see that. And after, when she was leaving, though, my favorite scene of the whole, this isn't related necessarily to therapy, but they show her in the rear view mirror and she looks kind of sad or maybe like thoughtful. And so, which also to me is like, okay, I did this hard thing. I talked in group, I deleted this number, but like, you just, it's like she wants to take a deep breath or a sigh. And I love that moment.
I agree with that moment because it really showed her vulnerability even more than it was in the group. Because yes, she showed vulnerability in the group, but physically she was still holding herself together as much as she could. But once the door closed on the tow truck, and you see her in the mirror, and no one's looking at her. That's when her mask really kind of drops away. And speaking as someone who's been ghosted, oh god, that just sucks. But it's really interesting because the different kind of advice that she got is basically the same kind of advice that you would get from different kind of friends in real life in those kind of situations. You'll rationalize, oh, maybe they're at work, maybe they're doing this, maybe maybe they're doing all of those things all at the same time. I'm guilty of having those thoughts and of trying to convince myself, that it's okay. But in reality, then you just have to accept that, they're just a dick. Am I allowed to curse on this show, by the way?
That's fine. Yeah. It's content relevant.
I can't say these things in actual therapy sessions with my clients. But so sometimes they're just a dick, and you just have to delete the number. And that's not to say that what happened is okay or good or it just is. And that's what acceptance is that it's just.
Then what I love about what you're saying is we call it group, and we act as if it's a special case that somehow people go talk to a group to resolve their issues, but in fact that's how we ever get out of our own head. Right? And usually we do it with friends, and they may not be trained and handle it particularly well, but nonetheless we go to friends because we get outside of ourselves to make sure we're sane. Right. And so even though our own brain can help us feel sane any given moment, we rely on people quite a bit, to make us, am I experiencing this the right way? And I got to tell you, just before, it was in the circle scene when she was entering, and she was telling them how she had played her cards with the text. And I have these things, and I'm going to read them to you because the comedy is so brilliant, yet what they're doing is so authentic. So Blonsky says to her, "You're glued to that thing." And she goes, "I met a guy, Josh, at a wedding." "When was the last time you talked to him?" 3 nights ago, when we when we first met. Or you guys said made love, and he goes, "Ooh, no." It says, "No, when we first slept together for the first time." And the guy says, "Another direct hit. Are you two married?" And the guy says, "Come on, codependency." I mean, this stuff is hilarious, right? And then hold on, let me skip all that. I'll cut this out. Let me get time here because there is a little bit of dialogue I want to get here. That's amazing. All right. So what was the last thing you texted him? That was fun. I can't stop smiling. Oh God, yikes, right? The guys are having these reactions because it's like, no, that's not how you manage the day after, right? Now, Shelly and I have talked about this a lot, about managing those moments, right? Those moments of seduction, those moments after. And she goes, "What?" And he goes, "I can't stop smiling." I mean, so they're really judging her here. And he goes, "It is thirsty and a cliche." And she goes, "You're thirsty and a cliche." That's
the best comeback ever.
Yeah. let me just find this one
And she's
line.
not wrong. I mean,
No,
she's not wrong. He was.
yeah, no, exactly. So I just thought that on the one hand, someone may take issue from a certain perspective on some of the things they were saying. On the other hand, being there, providing alternatives, is what friends do. And so I thought it was particularly also brilliant that it was a group of guys giving her this guidance on how to manage your sex life. What do you guys think of all that?
Oh, definitely defying expectations. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely defying expectations. And I mean, I when I watch stuff like that, I always look for performance as well.
yes.
And I mean, oh my gosh,
The comedy was
yeah. I mean, just that brief little snippet that you described there makes me want to go back and watch it again.
Yeah,
It really does. It really, really does.
I like the fact you said that, because good acting is good acting.
Yeah.
And good comedy is good acting and good writing. Right. Yeah. And all of it was there. All of it. I can't imagine how much fun they had doing that scene. I want to get the bonus features and see how much of it was just improv, because hilarious. So Jamie, Benjamin, you guys got any questions or comments about the show? Things that stuck out to you?
Yeah. Well, so when I first started watching it, which I actually only just saw it yesterday, because during the week I work late. I don't really watch TV during the week. So like, okay, Friday I'm gonna watch it. I'll be perfectly prepared for this podcast.
Right.
And I got home from work and just switched it right on. And at the beginning, it makes you think, oh wow, look, things are finally going her way.
Oh, poor
But
Jen.
yeah, well, when they introduced Josh at the last episode, I was watching it with my older brother, and I was like, well, I know that this is not going to end well, just because, like, you could tell. But I
Sexy
really
Josh is too good to be true.
Yeah, I really wanted her to have that, like, happy romance dating after all her struggles with trying to, basically compete with herself on the dating front. And I, so when at the end of the episode they showed what he did, and I was like, yeah, I knew that was coming a mile away, but doesn't make me any less angry at him. And I totally agree with all the guys in the group circle. He needs to go, drink his blood, kill him, whatever. Who knows? It'll probably happen. I have a feeling we're gonna see the therapy guys again.
I think so.
They're gonna come and save the day. But the thing that really stuck out for me the most was that the kind of the resolution that she came to at the end, which was to not compete with herself, to first of all to accept that She-Hulk is her, not just the name, but the big green lady is her. It's so all those kind of stuff, it reminds me of, like, so that part of her, the She-Hulk part of her is there for a reason. There's the obvious purpose of physical defense, right? But then there's that other purpose in that it defends against all her insecurities. Here we see is hardworking, driven professional who basically hides in her work. Doesn't go on dates, doesn't go partying with friends. I mean, so far as I've been able to see in this season, her only friend is her paralegal, which is great. Paralegals are awesome, and it's great to be friends with your coworkers, but, like, doesn't seem like she has much other support in her life, which it's a very real thing. A lot of people who struggle with those insecurities, they will throw themselves into their work, and that's going to be it. And so here she had the opportunity to kind of be something different with She-Hulk, but she didn't want that because of her insecurities. But She-Hulk is there to defend against those insecurities, to let you be free in a different way than she would normally have to be. And that realization she had at the end, that no, I can be me and I can be She-Hulk, and they each have strengths. You know, obviously She-Hulk has the obvious strengths, but even Jen, the character Jen, has her own strengths and her own personal attributes that are desirable. And for her to realize that, I think was such a big moment, because I think, I mean, how many of us, you know, when dating, you know, have not tried to compete with ourselves and be like, oh no, this is totally me. Like you put on the show, right? When you're going on dates for the first time with someone, how is that not a show? You know, you're trying to pretend to, you're not pretending, but you're putting on this face of the witty, the, you know, whatever kind of person that you think that they want. And it's only when you get to know the person beyond those dating environments that they see you for who you are, and that you see you for who you are. And of course, I'm saying this all as someone who's not had any success in relationships. So I'm speaking strictly as a therapist who can say all these platitudes from the outside looking in. I'm still waiting for that moment for me, but you know, it'll come.
Excellent points. Excellent points. For myself, what strikes me throughout the course of the show really is the dichotomy between exterior perfection and interior work that still needs to happen. Like she could, on the outside, she looks completely perfect. Like she will never have to worry about anything physically hurting her. Most things will bounce off of her or break when it tries to penetrate her skin or anything like that. But inside, she is still so vulnerable, and the work continues. So there's no way that she can just, you know, she's not ever going to be perfect on the inside. And that exterior perfection and interior, I don't want to call it defects or whatever, but just that work on the inside just needs to continue and grow as much as the outside has. And one of the things that has struck me over the course of the show is, as she has become She-Hulk, her usefulness to those around her has changed. Like it seems like even her family, her dad, played by Mark Lynn-Baker from Perfect Strangers, who I love, they have all found ways to utilize the She-Hulk part of her persona, you know, of her physicality and whatnot. And I can't speak for how necessarily they treated her before, but like I just noticed like there was a montage, I think, of her doing like all these different tasks, or they're talking about, oh, can you come over to the house and do this, this, and this, and this, and it's like, oh, so do they only find the usefulness in her now, where before they might have kept her at a distance? And that's got to be tough to deal with.
Terribly tough to deal with. I mean,
she needs more group therapy.
Get a position of authority, get a lot of money, and suddenly you have different relationships with people. You know, Benjamin, first of all, we're with you, and in your quest for whatever we want to call it, we wish you the best. I got to tell you, that opening scene, I've been married for a while. All right. So I don't have that morning scene anymore. I don't have that opening scene anymore, but my God, when I was younger and having that, hoping it will work, hoping that you find someone, that's real. I mean, that's what they're really doing well in this show, I think, is making these moments of, I guess you want to call them vulnerability, putting them center stage and making them real, because we just tend not to talk about them. And when we bring them to our friends, we often get platitudes, you know, hang in there, you know, you'll be all right. And it's nice that you have the support, but that internal tension is just still there. And I got to say, that vulnerability, the second time I watched it, it was hard. One thing I loved about what they did was they did this, she was in one scene and then not scene, but there was one shot and then another. So they kind of laid it up like comic book panels that had motion in them. And in one of them, she was having a shot before she went on her date. And I said, yep, been there, done that. Got to calm down, got to be chill. You know, just I've done that. And I thought, yes, she's managing on an almost non-manageable moment. I mean, that's the anxiety, the stress, the hope. It's all there, and that's actress is so damn good that you can see it in her face in every scene. So yeah, I love that first scene. Sexy Josh. Shelly told me last week he was going to be a creep.
Oh yeah, you saw that a mile away. Also, like the second he said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I keep looking for a beautiful lady," I was like,
Yeah.
the trigger, like red alert, red alert.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So who is Hulk King going to turn out to be? Because at the end he's texting blood, he says he's texting, he says, I got the blood, I got this and I got that, and he got the picture, and he's texting to Hulk King. So who is that going to end up being? Is it going to end up being her paralegal?
Ooh, I never thought
I'm
of
just
that.
saying, guys, that this show
Did not see that coming.
Didn't think of
Wow.
that.
Now
This
I'm gonna
show. No, I've heard everyone.
No, I think so. Actually, so when I first saw that, I actually misread it as Hulkling, as in like the character Hulkling, who's
Oh yeah.
one of the Young Avengers and everything. Because I know that Marvel has been like introducing the Young Avengers in various different places. I'm like, but that doesn't really make sense in this kind of context. And then I remembered, well, Bruce was like kidnapped by the alien people, and they were in a lab, and maybe they're trying to like create a new Hulk, and he couldn't. Like his version of the Hulk wasn't
kind of
able
a
to give them
Secret
what
Wars
they wanted. But so they're trying to go for her because it's like a different, version of the Hulk, a different dosage of the radiation or whatever. So I think it's probably gonna be like one of those like alien people that kidnapped Bruce and whatnot. Because I mean, it's not the first time that someone tried to get her blood.
Right.
They should have pretended to be a vampire. It would have worked so much better.
Anyone else thoughts on who Hulk King might be?
For lack of imagination, the one name that came to mind right away was well, two names actually. The first was the leader.
Yeah, same.
Who we have seen in the films, and the second one was I believe it was in the comics, wasn't it Thunder General Ross?
Yeah,
who becomes the Red Hulk.
He's so terrible too.
Yeah,
a lot of creeps in the whole comics.
Oh, fantastic.
I actually won't even, so like I love the Hulk. And I do have an Abomination action figure, but I won't even have a Red Hulk action figure. Like that's my level of hate for
No way.
I think
Stop
that's what they
there.
were going for. Red is the color of hate.
There you go.
Don't like Thunderbolt Ross. Don't like him.
But it does make sense that it could be that. I mean, it definitely adds up. And I actually find it, I never actually read all the comics and everything. I've read here and there, whatever I can find for free online. But I always actually thought it was an interesting kind of dichotomy between the Red Hulk and the Hulk, who's green, just because of the symbolism of the colors. That green could be considered good, but it's also considered envy, right? Green with envy. But red doesn't have that kind of mix of symbolization. Red is bad. It's danger. It's hate. It actually makes me think of in DC Comics, the different Lantern Corps. The Green Lanterns is willpower. Green is willpower. Okay, yeah, Bruce definitely has got a lot of willpower to keep pushing through, even though he's afraid of his other half. Right. That's exactly what willpower is. And red is rage. Red is hate and stuff like that. And that's what the Red Hulk is. He's just pure manifestation of rage and hate. Misguided hate, but hate nonetheless. He's got a lot of cognitive distortions there. He's in that victim stance, but he's not the victim.
So not to call out Shelly, but she is a huge Hulk fan, and she claims she is because he gets to smash stuff. But listening to Benjamin, it sounds like that's not enough, right? He's got to also have an internal struggle to not to want to smash stuff. Otherwise, Shelly would be a Red Hulk fan. Have I put words in your mouth, or please?
No. And I mean, I love the Hulk and could talk about him all day, but he also had like a victimization, Bruce Banner had a victimization background, and then he didn't want to be the Hulk. So, that's something like he didn't want to do it, yet he still shows up and like does the things that he wants to do. And I think, we all do that in some way, but, it's always been really hard for him. So I've always, anytime anybody is trash talking the Hulk,
Shelly smash.
Yeah, because he doesn't just blunder around and smash stuff.
Oh.
And if people need him, he helps them. That doesn't mean he doesn't do damage, but
yes.
And with this, thinking about Jen and trying to get her blood, I'm just like, of course they're going to play this romantic angle and try and take advantage of her and her vulnerability. And I like watching that. It makes sense, but then I'm also like, can't we do something else? Like, because why are we always preying upon women being nice or vulnerable or open? And that's how I felt about evil Josh, how I'm going to refer to him.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw it that way too.
Yeah.
But I actually also saw it as, so I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for women on this, but as Dr. Shelly Clevenger can say, women are victimized a lot in kind of the dating environment.
Yeah.
And that's what this showed. Heck, I would argue that constitutes a sex offense in some category or in some way, because he groomed her, basically. He made her believe that this is one thing, but then he just wanted to get inside her. It's for want of a better terminology there, but he was a predator, and he showed the worst of mankind. But here's the thing that probably I'm gonna dislike is that, oh wow, a man being a dick to a woman. Wow, that's that's not new. And that's why I agree with Shelly here on this, is that really there could not have been any other way, to show that. Couldn't have, whatever. But I thought it actually was an interesting kind of perspective. And actually when I saw it, I wanted to talk with Shelly about it because of her, work on this kind of stuff and her expertise, is that this shows, there's so a lot of times the perpetrators, the offenders, view themselves as victims. They take a victim stance, but they have not been victimized. Jen was victimized. She was the victim. But I would argue that he's probably thinking, oh, well, because she's doing this, that's somehow challenging my fragile male ego or whatever. And he takes that victim stance, or whoever hired him had that victim stance of, you did something because you exist, that's challenging me. And so I deserve to do this. There's those cognitive distortions. He's rationalizing it. There's thinking errors are there to allow him to do it. And you see that so much in victims cases and victimization cases, particularly with regards to domestic violence and abuse and everything. So I thought it was a really interesting look at it. And I wanted to get Shelly's view on that from her professional lens.
Yeah. And you're right. And I also not loved, I guess is the right word, but so I do a lot of cyber research, and I was like, look, he's taking her phone. There's a cyber crime. But a lot of victimization occurs within intimate partner type stuff. So it's very, it's very classic, and a lot of not just women, men fall prey to,
Yep.
all of these different things. And it always makes me, I mean, I've been married a lot, not as long as Scott, but I've been married,
Uh-oh.
but it always makes me like nervous if I ever had to go out and date again, because victimization, it's not like, oh, your heart's going to get broken. It's like somebody could actually victimize you in the course of this dating relationship, which even superheroes like Jen are not immune to.
I love what you guys are saying. I love how they showed the men in the circle coaching her on how to manage a dating relationship in this world. And I love the fact that they were saying it's okay not to like someone. I think it's so terribly important that we teach our kids, you don't have to like everybody. You can find ways not to be mean to people, right? I used to teach my kids, love everybody at different distances. Right. And if people get in your face, then you have to know what to do. Right. But this idea that we just got to all get along, it just makes people even more vulnerable. So I love the fact that they're training her, helping her, coaching her on how to manage her vulnerabilities is a phrase I use a lot. Be strong by managing your vulnerabilities, and give coaching on. My God, and my kids were fully into phones, right, by the time they were dating, and I won't tell you about some of the experiences. They would get mad, but what I will say is that parents get in this game. My daughter had a boyfriend whose parent got in the text game with my daughter, and I about lost my damn mind. But it's out there. And when this new way of communicating is out there, all the beauty and all the ugliness of the human condition shows up. I mean, look, Me Too, fantastic on Twitter, right? Twitter's not good. Twitter's not bad. It's a beautifully ugly thing. And managing anxiety, managing identity in this cyber world, when people can be so, dare I say, proto-sociopathic, it was terrifying. Yeah, here's the phone, and damn, I hope you know how to manage. I hope you know how to not let that text ruin your day. But it does. It just does, man. So I don't know. There's a lot of vulnerability being enhanced by cyber.
Another thing that was interesting was that one of the men helping her through it was someone who also victimized her. There was a guy who had attacked her. Granted, he didn't even get involved in the fight because he was a coward and stood in the back and just waved his arms around. But he was still someone who had victimized her, and it really showed an interesting kind of perspective of, who better to know how to deal with this than the person who did it to you,
right?
But I actually like that they showed his growth, because he, why do people offend? There's a variety of different reasons, but he was probably just young and stupid and was told certain things, and and he realized, oh wow, that was not okay. And so you see the offender rehabilitation kind of, in a sense. I mean, we definitely saw it with Emil to some degree. Whether he's fully rehabilitated or not, I don't know.
Shelly would say no.
I'm also waiting for that other shoe to drop with him, because rehabilitation doesn't go that way. It doesn't.
Go ahead.
But it was interesting that she would listen to this guy that she had just attacked 5 seconds ago, because he had attacked her.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought in the midst of that scene, when she sees him and then she just transforms into She-Hulk while she's moving, it's interesting that that's one She-Hulk, or that's a Jen She-Hulk transformation made out of anger. And then later on, it was the She-Hulk Jen transformation made out of resolution, right? And I thought juxtaposing those two, which I really didn't pick up on until we were talking, was very clever, because the one was quick, and that was the anger, and the one was slow, and that was resolution, right? And I'm sure I have to believe they had that conversation in the writing room, right? That we're going to have this one, it's going to be a big moment, and she's going to take her time, and everybody's going to cheer, because cooling down is a lot more cognitive and takes a lot more time than getting pissed off. So I absolutely loved it.
Takes too much time.
I'll tell you what. And it's interesting because it's that space that provides the space and time for her to actually do that. And this is, we talk a lot on this show about practice, right? If you're going to calm down, it's something you got to practice. You can call it meditation, call it what you want. I'm an old man. I get to talk about my kids, right? My kid had a fit one day. I put her up in her bedroom and I put headphones on her head. And I said, just sit here and chill out. Just get a grip, take your time, come downstairs when you're ready. The thing is, her parent was teaching her, coaching her how to manage the anger. And it's not like I'm good at it, but I know how I try to get out of it. And it's try to go somewhere else and listen to some music or something. So that kind of coaching, creating those spaces is something we could pay a little more attention to, I think. All right. Anything else about this episode that you guys want to talk about that stuck out to you? That's okay. Oh, Jamie, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, I was just thinking, after this last episode, I'm very curious how it's all going to wrap up. It was a slow build for me watching the series. After this last episode, I feel like it's stepped up another level, and now I'm like, I think there's 2 episodes left, if that's correct. And now I'm just curious to see how it's going to wrap up. I'm vested now. I really want to see how it's going to end.
Yeah, they did so much great character development for her. So, Shelly and I have talked about what we want this show to be about in the end, right? Do we want it to be about other characters? Do we want it to be about, Jen? And I got to say, I'm up for, doing something where the leader or someone pulls her into the MCU in a way where she's got to stay there as a She-Hulk per se. At the same time, they've got to do that through Jen, right? They've got to bring Jen along so that all this wonderful work they've been doing doesn't just collapse into being another superhero. Right. And she's, I don't know if it was just Daredevil's call that we were promised or if Daredevil himself is going to show up, but
they're teasing us.
They are teasing us, but
I want that to happen. Like I thought it was going to happen when she was going to go to court for her thing. I was like, oh, she's going to need a lawyer. They already teased Daredevil, who is a lawyer, and he's like a criminal defense lawyer and not whatever trademark lawyer is. But I was like, why did they not throw him in there?
Yeah,
well, they're playing.
I remember he lives in New York, and it would be really random for him to show up in LA.
Fair enough. He does have an LA arc, though, right? True. There is an LA arc to Daredevil, so we'll see if maybe they try to work that in. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it wraps up in the MCU through Daredevil. You know what I'm saying? Is that's just kind of. But I agree. Well, I said what I hope. I don't want Jen to go away, right? And I don't want her to be in spaces where her complexities are ignored in the name of fighting off space aliens. Sometimes you guys just She-Hulk and do it, and I get that, but I don't want that to be all we see of her, ever, because they've done too much work. Just like, if I could say, all the great work they did with Wanda in the series, and look, I'm not going to sit here and hate on Doctor Strange in the multiverse, madness of the multiverse. But there was a certain complexity to Wanda that I feel they lost.
Yeah, 100%.
Go ahead.
I did not like that movie, which people can tell me that they don't like me for that reason. But agreed. I felt like she was just one-dimensional when she had so much more that could have been brought. Agreed.
There was no insight at all that another her in another universe would be satisfactory. Right. There was no entertaining of that at all. After all she'd been through with Vision, they just had her one-note anger. And then the fact I did a little podcast on Wanda where I was claiming that Disney knew what they were doing, or Marvel knew what they were doing when they had her leave the town at the end and not have her be accountable in that moment because they were going to make her accountable later. And they didn't. I mean, they
heard you say that, and they purposely did it this way just to prove you wrong.
That's exactly. Well, you never know if they didn't know what they had. I mean, when I was arguing that they did it on purpose, I had people say, no, Scott, that's just privilege leaking through in the writing room. And she was not going to ever be accountable for what she did to those people. So I put it out there. I said, no, man, they're going to do it. And it's like, there's one moment where she and Strange are talking in the movie, and she goes, "Oh, when you do things that are bad, you're a hero. When I do them, and that was it, And it's like, what? You just left that on the table. So I hope they don't do that to Jen. I think we'd be feel pretty betrayed. Actually,
we'd all Hulk out and we'd all smash.
Hulk out and we would all smash. Exactly. Well, on that note, I think we'll go ahead and bring the episode to a close. So Benjamin, please tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
So you can find me through either of my podcasts. For Mental Health Quest, it is Facebook and Twitter at Mental Health Quest Podcast, on MHQ Podcast on Twitter, My Hero Therapy, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at My Hero Therapy.
Fantastic. How about you, Jamie?
You can find me on Instagram. It is jamie.coker_artist. You can also find me on Facebook. That is Jaime Coker Creations LLC. I'm also on TikTok. My wife manages that. She does a fantastic job of putting videos together. That's also under my handle. And then I'm usually traveling around doing shows, so maybe I'll come get a show near you.
That's fantastic that you ask your partner to manage TikTok for you. So
when it comes to that, she's so much more creative than I.
Oh, well, sometimes you just need to offload management. I can't tell you how many times I call my 20-something daughters and ask, hey, what does this mean on Facebook? What am I supposed to how am I supposed to respond? And they get a kick out of it. But I've waded into that world very slowly because I know I'm not in the groove as to what's acceptable, what's not, and et cetera. So Benjamin, Jamie, it was an absolute blast to have you two here. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Shelly, please tell everyone where they can find you.
At Dr. Clevenger on Twitter.
Fantastic. So you can find all episodes of She-Hulking on YouTube at the Dark Loops Productions channel. We're also podcasting, sending out podcast versions at the same time. You can find those on any place where you find podcasts. If you want to comment on the show, let us know what we got right. Tell us what we got wrong. Comment right here on the YouTube page or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we will be sure to read it at the end of our next discussion. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs, and remember, smash the patriarchy. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.